Recording in progress.
Good morning. And welcome to this hybrid service of the Unitarian Church of Harrisburg. I say hybrid because while I'm here with you in the sanctuary, our speakers are in Pittsburgh and will be joining us via Zoom on that screen. I'm Jim Cavanaugh, and I look forward to sharing leadership of today's service with Susan Frietsche, her colleague Tyler Gillett, and the many others who have worked to make this service a success. This is a quarterly social justice roundtable service organized by the Church's Reproductive Justice Allies. We welcome you to celebrate in the transformative power of the religious community. Whoever you are, wherever you live, whomever you love, whatever you do for a living, you are welcome at the Unitarian Church of Harrisburg. We invite you to join us for coffee hour following this morning's service, either downstairs, out the door, down the stairs to the side, featuring bagels and fruit today, and people attending the town hall after the service are welcome to bring a snack upstairs. The town hall will begin sharply at noon. If you're on Zoom, you're welcome. I invite you to take this moment to hold our space here as silent, as sacred, by silencing your electronic device, like this, and preparing yourself to be present. online or in person. We're grateful that you are here for this time together.
When I first heard Holly Nair's "We Are a Gentle, Angry People," it was the first time in this very sanctuary years ago. However, I was greatly confused as it has a lovely flowing melody that didn't quite seem to match the lyrics. I understood the gentle part, but I couldn't reconcile the angry part. It just felt a little bit off to me. That is, until I learned the history of the song. So for those who don't know it, we'd like to share that with you today.
We are gentle, and we are singing for our lives.
I think the song that probably resonates the most as an anthem is Singing for Our Lives, which she wrote when Harvey Milk was assassinated.
Mayor of San Francisco was shot and killed in his office in City Hall this morning. So was Harvey Milk, a city supervisor. As a member of the Board of Supervisors, Harvey Milk was a champion of homosexual rights.
We're driving down to San Francisco. It was like we had to be there. We just had to get there. I'm driving and I suddenly hear this guttural noise. It was a primal sound coming out of Howell. And she starts humming. And she hums it, and she hums it, and she hums it, and then she starts singing. And by the time we get to San Francisco, she's written 2 verses.
And that night, we all sang, "We are gay and lesbian people," and for many, it was the first time they said those words out loud about themselves. And then the song flew out, and allies began to sing it. And the words were changed to "We are gay and straight together." And the song found its way into the Unitarian hymnal. And then we learned a lot more about sexuality. And now I can't fit all the words into the meter of the song. But whatever door you walk through to your very essence, just know that we see you. We see you. And we are all in this together.
It became the anthem of the LGBT movement.
And it's a song that's been carried all over the world, sung by hundreds of thousands of people.
We are land of many colors, and we are singing for our lives.
My response to you singing that song was immediate and so intense, and it would have overwhelmed me, except it felt instead that a calming fire had started in me.
Singing for our lives, we are gay and straight together. We are gay and straight together, and we are singing for our lives. And we
Afraid, tired, or energized, thank you for bringing your whole self to this shared space this morning. We are gentle, angry people, and we are singing for our lives. We are gentle, angry people. Singing
Thank you for that introduction, Yvonne. I've sung that many times, as most of us have, and I'm not sure I knew the background of it. Our call to worship is The Right to Choose by Elizabeth Mount. To begin, to start, to create, to undertake, to grow, to promise, to increase, to generate. All these are our birthright. As we are created, so may we create. The ability and the choice to create is sacred. To withdraw that chance from any person without their permission would be a violent act, the cutting off of life itself. And yet, as precious as the right is to simply not, to end, to terminate, to stop, to discontinue, to rest, to hibernate, to impede, to prevent, these too are our birthright. For without our consent, our ability to create becomes not a blessing, but a burden and an imposition. Without a space for no, there can be no trustworthy yes. Today we come to this holy place and time, ready to invoke the divine, to make space for the sacred, to co-create community once again. This too is a choice. You may not be coerced into the relationship with the holy or with one another. I invite you, I ask you to join us. I respect it, if you will not today or ever. More sacred than any other individual need is choice. The right to know oneself, the right to know what you're ready for, what you need, to stretch when you can, to pause when you will, to know your body, your mind, your spirit better than anyone else, and ultimately to be trusted with the responsibility of your own living. A flame within a chalice, namely a cup with a stem and a foot, represents our Unitarian Universalist Association and is a symbol of our UU faith. These words, A Tapestry of Souls, are by Jamie Yandel. We light this chalice to ignite the divine spark of the universe, whose pronouns have always been plural. A co-creation of brilliance and diversity, a tapestry of souls perfected. Thank you, Bill Choir. That was lovely. We affirm our mission to encourage, equip, and empower, and we ask that you join in the affirmation of our covenant with one another. Love is the spirit of this congregation, and service is our gift. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
Good morning. Today's story is titled Don't Hug Doug. He Doesn't Like It by Carrie Fineson. You can hug a pug.
Aww.
You can hug a bug.
Maybe.
Or a slug.
Ew.
But don't hug Doug. He doesn't like it.
No hugs, please. No.
You can hug a valentine.
Sweet.
Or a porcupine.
Don't recommend that.
Or a Frankenstein. But don't hug Doug. He doesn't like it.
Seriously, no hugs.
Don't worry, Doug likes you. He just doesn't like hugs.
They're too squeezy, too squashy, too squishy, too smushy.
There are lots of things Doug does like. He likes to sort his rock collection and try on his sock collection and draw with his chalk collection. And he really likes harmonica bands. But he doesn't like hugs. So no matter how huggable he looks, no matter how much you want to, even if it's his birthday, please don't hug Doug.
I'm just not a hugger.
What about hello hugs?
No.
What about goodbye hugs?
Nope.
What about game-winning home run hugs?
Nuh-uh.
What about dropped ice cream cone hugs?
Still no, but I love another scoop.
There's only one kind of hug Doug likes. He likes a not squeezy, not squashy, not smooshy, a just right bedtime hug from his mom. Is it bedtime? Are you Doug's mom? No, you're not. So don't hug Doug.
Thanks, but no thanks.
Can you hug these people? Doug's best friend, Finn, Grandma McGrin, an identical twin. This kid. There's only one way to find out.
Ask.
Can I hug you?
Not now. I gotta go.
Can I hug you, Grandma?
Oh, yes, I love hugs and I always will.
Can I hug you?
Yes.
No. Can I hug you?
Baguba, that means yes.
Can you hug Doug's pot-bellied pig? Ask. Can we hug your pot-bellied pig?
Yes, she loves hugs, but be gentle. She's a little scared of strangers.
Some people love hugs. Lots of people don't. And lots of people are somewhere in the middle.
Who here likes hugs?
I do. I love hugs. Me too. I'd love a hug right now. I don't. Me neither. Sometimes. Never have. From certain people. Hugs, ugh. When I'm sad, from certain people. On Tuesdays. So, can you hug Doug? No, he doesn't like it. Oh, nay, uggs, hey, that's pig Latin for no hugs. But he does like you, and he likes 5 highs. High fives.
I love high fives.
That was my own version of pig Latin. Doug is a master of high fives. straight 5, double 5, low 5, side 5, spinny 5, elbow 5, jump 5, granny 5, piggy 5, franken 5, and puppy 5. He even has a high 5 for you. Go ahead, ask. Hey, Doug, high 5?
Yes, I love high five.
And now we will sing our children to their classes.
Good morning. Good morning. Can everyone hear me? Can everyone hear me? I'm reading selections from the majority opinion in Allegheny Reproductive Health Center, the Department of Human Services. Hang on. Authored by Pennsylvania Supreme Court Justice Christine Donahue. The historical origins of the unequal treatment of women under the law predates the creation of this Commonwealth. Centuries of inequality influenced the legal systems and principles that served as the foundation for all of Great Britain's American colonies, including, of course, Pennsylvania. By way of example, the concept of coverture demanded that once a woman married, her legal existence disappeared. By operation of this doctrine, a married woman's rights and obligations were entirely subsumed by her husband. Even as society made significant and yet glacial progress toward legal equality, those interpreting the law continued to view women as not only having fewer legal rights than men, but also as lesser human beings by design. These assumptions supporting the destiny of women to hold an inferior legal status were primarily justified by biological differences between men and women. Despite landmark achievements such as women's suffrage in 1919, many of the Commonwealth's laws continued to reflect the common law view that women were incapable of functioning independently from men, thereby forcing them into their predetermined social roles as wives and mothers. It was within this context of persistent relegation of women to subservient and dependent roles that Pennsylvania voters ratified the Equal Rights Amendment. The passage of Pennsylvania's Equal Rights Amendment brought on a flurry of legal action in the executive, legislative, and judicial branches to bring the law into conformity with the new order in which sex was no longer a permissible factor in determining an individual's rights. Pennsylvania's Equal Rights Amendment was one of the most litigated state equal rights amendment provisions in the country. The amendment was intended to enshrine equality of the sexes in our Commonwealth and to rectify centuries of subjugation of the rights of women. This would be a hollow promise if women did not possess the ability to control their destiny. Whether or not to carry a pregnancy, whether or not to give birth, whether or when to expand the size of their families, whether or when to make a career, employment, or other change in the course of their lives, are all decisions central to self-determination and ultimately to equality in society. And some further selections from a concurring opinion in the same case by Pennsylvania Supreme Court Justice David Wecht. The provision of unequal health care and the coercion of women to give birth against their will would seem to serve archaic and stereotypical notions about women, rooted in beliefs about the primacy of childbearing and the disapproval of women who feel compelled to discontinue their pregnancies. To manifest respect for a woman as a mother while manifesting disrespect for a woman's healthcare decisions is to perpetuate a value-laden, sex-based stereotype. Women's reproductive capacity and their ability to become mothers traditionally has long been used as justification for perpetuating distinctions between the sexes. The state may not constitutionally advance its purported interest in promoting motherhood by preordaining that role for all women. Where the legislature uses the law to coerce, but not to support women in bearing children, its purported interest in potential life rings hollow. A state concerned with protecting potential life could show that it advances this interest in ways that support women who choose to have children, in their efforts to bear and raise a healthy child by, for instance, providing effective sex education, ensuring access to contraception, offering comprehensive health care aimed at reducing infant and maternal mortality, enacting policies that seek to reduce negative health consequences of pregnancy, addressing the financial reasons that may cause women to choose to end a pregnancy, supporting mothers in their education and continued employment, or directing resources at reducing infant mortality. Bodily autonomy is so essential to the foundational concept of liberty that it is hard to imagine any liberty that is more fundamental than the right to make decisions about one's own body. In this respect, the guarantee of reproductive autonomy is a safeguard against tyranny. Although state control over the bodies of women and over intimate decisions of families may not strike one as problematic if one's conscience aligns with the interests advanced by the state, this discrete and momentary alignment is no protection against the state shifting its target. Empowering the state to direct and occupy the lives of individuals in ways that serve our personal interests also empowers the state to direct and occupy our lives in ways that do not. When we talk about reproductive autonomy, what is really at stake is the prospect of equal citizenship. Although federal jurisprudence has done little to recognize reproductive autonomy as an issue of equality, it is apparent that equality is illusory without the ability to control one's body, including one's reproductive decisions. Being empowered under the law to determine the timing of motherhood protects a woman's status as an equal citizen by affording her autonomy over her sexuality, her relationships, her education, her career, her family, and her life.
Thank you so much, Tyler. Such beautiful words, and so thrilling that they are coming from the highest court in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. My name is Susan Frietsche. I am Executive Director of the Women's Law Project, and I have the great happiness and honor of working with Attorney Tyler Gillett in our Pittsburgh office. Many of you already know us. We're a 50-year-old state-based women's legal advocacy organization, and we represent the reproductive health care providers at the freestanding clinics in Pennsylvania and have done so for most of our 50 years. We are living in troubling times. At the federal level, civil rights protections and safety net programs for women, for minorities, for LGBTQ people, for people with disabilities, for veterans, for immigrants, for federal employees are being not so much whittled away as hacked to pieces with a chainsaw. The norms by which our democracy has historically operated seem to have suddenly gone by the wayside. Federal institutions that we've relied on for our protection, our safety, and our prosperity are getting gutted, all ostensibly in the name of efficiency. And if all of those executive orders, the cuts, the firings, seem cruel, cruelty may well indeed be the very point of it all. So I suspect we are all this morning in some some stage of mourning, some level of emotional turmoil. And we can take a moment to acknowledge the feelings of heartbreak, fear, and anger that such profound and wide-ranging loss inflicts. Since the civil rights era of the 60s and 70s, the federal level of government, federal courts, Congress, federal agencies like the Department of Justice, like the U.S. Department of Education's Office for Civil Rights, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, the Department of Labor. These have been the first and best defenders of liberty and equality. But now we have to look elsewhere for help. And our message this morning, with that task in front of us, is really one of hope, because I think we have more power than we've been using. To understand where we are and where we're going to have to talk about civics. So the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania was established by a convention in 1776, making it older than the US Constitution. It doesn't have a Bill of Rights tacked onto the end as an afterthought. It actually begins Article 1 with a declaration of inherent rights, that all persons in the Commonwealth are born equally free and independent and have certain inherent and indefeasible rights, among which are those of enjoying and defending life and liberty, of acquiring, possessing, and protecting property and reputation, and of pursuing their own happiness. In interpreting the Commonwealth's charter, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court has on more than one occasion pointed out that our state constitution is more protective of individual rights than the US Constitution. It enumerates and establishes more named rights than the US Constitution does. And yet, despite this fact, our state constitution, our state judicial system, and our state laws generally have been underdeveloped and underused in the struggle for individual rights. So why is that? Maybe it is because for so many years, our state Supreme Court, our state judiciary generally, was less friendly to civil rights than the US Supreme Court. Now, that is a historical fact that is no longer true. Maybe it's because successful litigation in federal court carried with it the promise that struggling public interest lawyers could make their opponents pay their attorney's fees. And court-ordered attorney's fees may not always be available through litigation in state court. And maybe it's just because we're hardwired to think that bigger is better, that national work is worthier or more durable than state level work. But for whatever reason, state law and state constitutions, not only in Pennsylvania, really across the country, have been underused. But I think at this moment in history, when our federal protections have been weakened, or in the case of abortion rights, eviscerated, we have to use every tool we've got. If you're trying to advance women's rights and the rights of LGBTQ people, the Pennsylvania Constitution is an amazing tool. That is because, unlike the federal Constitution, the Pennsylvania Constitution, as you have heard, has an Equal Rights Amendment. This was adopted in the full flush of the feminist movement of the late 60s and early 70s. This was adopted in 1971, and it states, equality of rights under the law shall not be denied or abridged in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania because of the sex of the individual. The state Supreme Court has determined that this is a near absolute rule. How many times do you have an absolute rule in the law? Very, very rarely, but this is as close to absolute as you can get. So any law passed by the Pennsylvania legislature that makes a sex-based distinction where you either get more rights or have more burdens because of your sex, that is presumptively unconstitutional under the ERA. So at the Women's Law Project in 2019, we filed a lawsuit against a state law that bans the use of Medicaid funds to cover abortion. Like the federal government, Pennsylvania does not provide Medicaid funds for abortion care except in very limited circumstances. And that is catastrophic for low-income women in the state. Having to come up with the funds themselves, which can be run from several $100s to $500 for a first trimester procedure to $10,000 or more for a second trimester, more complex procedure. That requires people to make difficult choices about whether to pay rent or get the health care they need, whether to heat their home or feed the children they already have. We argued that this law makes a sex-based distinction that the ERA does not allow because state Medicaid covers every necessary medical procedure for men, all of men's reproductive health needs, but does not cover this very common and very essential reproductive health care for women. It's repugnant to the principles underlying the ERA because it furthers rigid gender stereotypes in our laws, the assumption that all women should be mothers, that is their one central important role to the exclusion of other things, that the home is their sphere of influence and not anything outside the home. And this does not recognize the diversity of interest, talent, and ability of individual women. And so these archaic assumptions are not permitted to continue to limit women's educational, employment, social, and civic opportunities. About a year ago, in January of 2024, the state Supreme Court issued a blockbuster ruling that changed the law forever. By a 3-2 vote, they ruled in our favor on this Medicaid abortion coverage ban case. We don't yet have Medicaid coverage. They sent us back down to the trial court to finish the job, and that is where we are now. But what they did was they ruled that the Medicaid abortion coverage ban creates a sex-based classification that impermissibly awards benefits and imposes burdens based on sex. We're continuing to pursue this case on remand to the Commonwealth Court. We will not stop until we've procured a right to Medicaid funding for abortion care for all. And when we do that, we will have a stronger abortion right in Pennsylvania than we ever had federally under Roe v. Wade. The ruling from the state Supreme Court has really invigorated the Equal Rights Amendment. We've asked the court to find not only that there's an equality right here in equal access to Medicaid coverage, but hand in hand with that equality concept, we are asking the court to acknowledge that there is also a right to reproductive autonomy protected by the state constitution. This right is vital, as the reading made so beautifully clear, for women's liberty, dignity, and equality in society. We're coming to understand that the power of the Equal Rights Amendment extends far beyond abortion law. It extends far beyond reproductive health care. We believe it also will extend to protect LGBTQ people across the Commonwealth. That is because the word sex in the Equal Rights Amendment is to be understood expansively, not just biological sex, whatever that may be understood to be, not just to sex assigned at birth, but also to sexual orientation, gender identity, gender expression, transgender identity. What this means is that equality of rights in the Commonwealth can't be abridged or denied to anyone anywhere along the gender and sexuality spectrum in a time when our transgender brothers and sisters are under relentless attack, shameful attack. State-level protections are critical. Now, you may be sitting there thinking to yourself, that's fine, but isn't federal law supreme over state law? And couldn't federal authorities Bigfoot us, just smash us right down? Because if Congress passes a law criminalizing abortion, isn't that supreme over our state equal rights amendment and any kind of victory we could get through state authorities? Yes. Yes, that is true. Federal law is supreme over state law. And if Congress had the will and the votes to do so, it could override state policy. But here's the thing. It hasn't happened yet. Dobbs eliminated the federal right to abortion over 2 years ago, almost 3 years ago. It has not happened yet. It might never happen. Dobbs destroyed our federal abortion rights over 2 years ago, but it did not destroy states' power to protect those rights at the state level. And it might never get around to doing it. So we can sit around and wait for federal authorities to try to limit the power of our state to protect ourselves. But that's not really what we're here for. So where does that leave us now? We must develop state constitutional equality and liberty guarantees. We must ground them in more than one provision of the state constitution, so it's harder to dislodge them. And then we must aggressively apply that constitutional protection to win what we never could under Roe versus Wade, true reproductive and sexual justice for all. This is an effort that has national significance. Other states are watching and following us, which is a thrill to see happening. And I believe we can achieve these victories. They will be hollow if we don't protect and enforce them, because it's not enough to win a right. We have to anticipate and fight the inevitable backlash. And every step forward we take, you can be sure a backlash will be right on its heels. And then we have to enforce the right through ongoing litigation when violations occur. This is where you come in. Litigation victories are nice and constitutional rights are very, very helpful. But in the end, it's all meaningless. It's all very fragile unless it is protected by a groundswell of support from the citizenry. Your voices must be heard. They must be heard loud and clear. And I will simply note here that all three of the Pennsylvania Supreme Court justices who ruled for a vibrant interpretation of the Pennsylvania Equal Rights Amendment are facing retention elections this year. I hope the potential of our state constitution to protect individual rights gives you some hope and inspiration and encouragement in this discouraging time. Thank you for having us here to talk, and I hope there's time for some questions.
And I'm proud to have known her for at least a decade and then some. Please remain seated for our meditation hymn. Let us open our hearts and minds now to a time of meditation and prayer, a time to give expression to our joys and sorrows. Life inevitably brings joys and sorrows, worries and triumphs. In community, we often find that sorrows shared are eased and joys shared are multiplied. What burdens of worry or sorrow weigh heavily on you this morning? What joys or gratitudes lift your heart? We invite you to share them now by writing them on a slip at the back of the room or typing them on the online chat if you're with us by Zoom. Please be sure to indicate whether your message is okay to share out loud and whether your name may be shared. You can also honor your joys and sorrows by placing a stone into the water of community. Please come down to the middle aisle, return to your seats toward the side aisles. Spoken or unspoken, our hearts join with yours in bearing and celebrating all that life brings. Dan Vaughn tells us, sharing my great concern for my daughter, friends, children, and other close friends who rely on Medicaid for their expensive medications. Many of these meds are under threat also by the Secretary of Health who wants to take them away. Ann Stillwater tells us, my emotions are mixed about the death of my 91-year-old dad last week. Alzheimer's meant that he had not recognized me for years, so the pneumonia was a blessing. Still, it's a time for lots of feelings. Prayer for me, my stepfather, stepmother, and family's prayers are appreciated. Jim Hanshaw has a joy. My youngest cousin, Patrick McCurdy, this morning awoke from intubation after a major heart attack a week ago at Hershey Medical Center. And Suzanne, no last name, says, thank you for being a champion, Jim. There are lots of guys named Jim here. And from James Henninger Voss, I assume this is okay to read out, prayer and hope for the people of Ukraine, Gaza, and Haiti. This prayer, a web of holy relationships, is by our former interim minister, Reverend Lynn Cox. Spirit of life, who draws us together in a web of holy relationships, make your presence known with us and in us and among us. Remind us that we are not alone in history. Ignite us with the courage of the living tradition. Remind us that we're not alone in entering the future. Anchor us with patience and perseverance. Remind us that we're not alone in our times of grief and pain. Comfort us with your spirit, manifest in human hands and voices. Remind us that we're not alone in joy and wonder. Inspire us to honor and extend the beauty we find in this world. Divine music of the universe, let our hearts beat in diverse and harmonious rhythms, cooperating with an everlasting dance of love. May we move with the rhythms of peace. May we move with the rhythms of compassion. May we move with the rhythms of justice. Source of stars and planets and water and land, open our hearts to all of our neighbors. Open our souls to a renewal of faith. Open our hands to join together in the work ahead. So be it, blessed be, and amen. And now let us pause for a moment of healing silence. The Unitarian Church of Harrisburg is, as always, a freely gathered church of free people. Our church is created, sustained, and supported by us, the members and friends of UCH. Each week, we take up an offering where we ask each other to share money to support the church. We also use half of the plate collection to help a charity that's doing important work to improve the world. For the month of March, we are sharing with the LGBT Center of Central Pennsylvania. The mission of the LGBT Center is to foster inclusive communities and holistic well-being for LGBTQ+ people through social, educational, and cultural engagements. One of their key programs is Common Roads, a space for LGBTQ+ youth and young adults to find community, connection, and support. In just a moment, when the music starts playing, the ushers will start passing the offering plates around. You can put cash or checks in the plate when it comes by. You can also donate online using the QR code on the back of the Order of Service or visiting our website. Everyone's support is important to this church. Please consider giving what you are able.
In today's divided landscape, I often think if only we could deeply listen to each other's stories, where would we be then? This hymn is my prayer for us as we leave this space and move about in the world around us. I invite you to rise and join us in this prayer.
Our benediction, a prayer before reading the news, was written in early 2016 by Rabbi Erwin Keller. I think it applies more broadly to any time we're preparing to be in this complicated, challenging, and all too often painful world. It's called a prayer before reading the news, a prayer before being out in the world. My God, the soul that you have placed in me is pure and vulnerable. I'm afraid that looking at today's news will be painful. Encircle me in a robe of light that I can witness the wounds of the world without being wounded myself. Let me learn what I need to know in order to be of my greatest use without being overwhelmed by despair. I feel your protective light now as I open myself to the world's suffering and the world's joy. Amen.